Freddie Mercury didn't wait for permission to be the biggest performer in the world. He just became it. Michael Jackson redefined what a global superstar could be. Every move calculated, every era a reinvention, a sealed and perfect legacy. Elvis Presley didn't just sell records. He rewired American culture, and the world followed. Bob Marley turned personal conviction into a worldwide language. His music outlived every trend that tried to bury it. Maggie Smith built a career so precise, so disciplined, that decades of audiences never once caught her working. Prince owned every part of his art: the writing, the production, the performance, the masters. He showed what total creative control actually looked like. Kobe Bryant made obsession look like a philosophy. The hours, the details, the refusal to separate greatness from daily practice. Whitney Houston had a voice that made every other voice sound like it was still searching for something. There is a moment in 2013 that tells you almost everything you need to know about what Dwayne Johnson changed. Fast and Furious 6 opens in cinemas worldwide, and within its first weekend, it pulls in over $238 million globally. Johnson is not the franchise's original star. He joined it in the fifth film as a latecomer, a supposed supporting muscle. By the sixth, the series has pivoted around him. Producers, rival studios, and trade journalists all note the same thing. His presence didn't just boost a sequel, it restructured the commercial logic of one of Hollywood's biggest properties. That is not a small thing. That is the kind of gravitational pull that takes decades for most actors to accumulate, if they accumulate it at all. What makes that moment worth examining is how improbable it looked from the outside, and how inevitable it looks once you trace the decisions behind it. Dwayne Douglas Johnson grew up inside professional wrestling. His grandfather, Peter Maivia, was a celebrated Samoan wrestler, a man with genuine reverence in the business. His father, Rocky Johnson, was one of the first black tag team champions in WWE history, a legitimizing force who broke through barriers that the industry had kept firmly in place. Dwayne watched both of them work, absorbed the discipline, studied the performance craft that professional wrestling demands, a craft that is almost never given its due. The ability to command a live crowd, read a room of thousands, shift tone mid-performance, and make scripted drama feel emotionally real. He did not simply inherit a connection to wrestling. He learned a performance language that Hollywood genuinely does not teach. His football path, the University of Miami, in the early 1990s, as part of a national championship roster, ended without the NFL contract he had trained for. He arrived in Calgary with $7 in his pocket, by his own account, and began the climb through the wrestling territories. He debuted in WWE in 1996 as a babyface, a hero character, and was received coldly. The crowd wanted something different. He adjusted. He turned heel, became The Rock, and built one of the most precisely calibrated crowd personas in the history of the business. The catchphrases, the raised eyebrow, the mic work, the charisma that read all the way to the back rows. None of it was accidental. He was engineering a character with the discipline of someone who understood that every detail compounds. By the late 1990s, he was the WWE's biggest draw. Championships followed, 8 in total across his first major run. But the titles were almost secondary to what he was building. He was learning, in front of millions of live viewers every week, how to hold an audience. Saturday Night Live spots and cameos on sketch programs began appearing. The crossover was not forced. It was legible. He had the comic timing, the self-awareness, the willingness to be the butt of a joke without diminishing himself. Hollywood took notice before he ever made a real pitch. His first major leading role came in 2002 with The Scorpion King. It earned $36 million on its opening weekend in the United States alone, setting a record at the time for an actor making their starring debut. Studios updated their projection models. The question being asked in development meetings shifted from whether a wrestler could open a film to which films should be built around him. What followed over the next decade was not a smooth ascent. It was a series of calculated bets, some of which failed in ways that were instructive. Doom in 2005, Gridiron Gang, The Tooth Fairy, films that underperformed or sat in genres that muffled what he actually did well. The pattern, when you examine the period honestly, shows an actor and his team learning through failure what the audience actually came to see. He was most effective in films where his physical presence was matched by material that allowed emotional directness, and where the script gave him room to be funny on his own terms, rather than as a prop for someone else's joke. The pivot to Fast Five in 2011 is the moment where those lessons converged with the right opportunity. His character, Luke Hobbs, walked into a franchise with a settled ensemble and immediately created productive tension. The on-screen dynamic with Vin Diesel was, by multiple accounts, genuinely competitive, and that friction translated into screen energy that audiences responded to with box office numbers. Fast Five crossed $600 million worldwide. It revitalized a franchise that had been declining. Johnson's instinct to play Hobbs with theatrical seriousness rather than winking at the absurdity gave the films a tonal anchor they had lacked. He was also developing a production company, $7 Productions, co-founded with his ex-wife and longtime business partner, Danny Garcia. The name comes from the $7 he arrived in Calgary with, which is a detail that functions both as personal mythology and as a genuine statement of intent. $7 has produced a substantial volume of his projects, including Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, in 2017, which earned over $962 million globally and became the highest-grossing film in Sony Pictures history at that point. That film succeeded partly because Johnson and his co-stars, Kevin Hart, Karen Gillan, Jack Black, were given room to play against type and against each other, and partly because the production model gave Johnson creative leverage that pure acting contracts do not. The relationship with Kevin Hart is worth examining on its own terms. Hart has spoken publicly about Johnson's influence on his approach to building a multi-platform career. Their pairing in Jumanji and Central Intelligence is not simply a comedy double act. It is a case study in two entertainers with complementary instincts, generating something that neither produces alone. Hart is a comedian who benefits from a straight man with genuine authority. Johnson is an action presence who benefits from a comic foil who can humanize him without undercutting him. The chemistry is real, and the business results bear that out. His television project, Ballers on HBO, which ran from 2015 to 2019, demonstrated something different. In a drama series format, playing a retired NFL player navigating the financial industry of professional sports, he showed sustained dramatic range across multiple seasons. The show was not simply a vehicle for his physical presence. It required him to hold scenes in boardrooms, in quiet, personal conversations, in moments of doubt. And he did that work credibly enough to earn the show 5 seasons and a dedicated critical audience. The XFL acquisition in 2020, when Johnson and Danny Garcia purchased the Football League out of bankruptcy for approximately $15 million, is one of the more revealing business moves of his career. The league had failed under previous ownership. They restarted it, restructured the business model, secured a television deal, and ran a spring 2023 season before merging operations with the USFL to form the United Football League. Whether that enterprise becomes a lasting institution is still an open question. What it demonstrates is a willingness to deploy capital in sports infrastructure in a way that almost no other entertainer of his profile has attempted. His social media footprint, over 87 million followers on Instagram at the time of reporting, functions as a direct distribution channel that bypasses traditional entertainment industry gatekeeping. He uses it with a consistency and deliberateness that marketing professionals study. The mixture of training footage, behind-the-scenes access, promotional content, and personal disclosure is calibrated to maintain intimacy at scale. He has talked openly about his experiences with depression, particularly a period he describes following the end of his football career. And those disclosures have generated significant public response and made him a visible figure in conversations about mental health among men, a demographic where such conversations remain genuinely difficult to start. His tequila brand, Teremana, launched in 2020, sold over 1 million cases in its first year, a benchmark that established brands routinely take 5 to 10 years to reach. The spirits industry reported it as one of the fastest growths in the category's recent history. His energy drink, Zoa, launched in the same year, entered a saturated market with the advantage of his direct-to-consumer social infrastructure and a co-ownership structure that gave him brand equity rather than an endorsement fee. These are not celebrity licensing arrangements where a name sits on a label. These are ownership positions, and the distinction matters for understanding how he has structured his financial independence from any single studio or network relationship. In 2021, Forbes estimated his earnings at $270 million for the year, making him the highest-paid actor in the world by that measure. That figure includes film compensation, production revenue, brand ownership, and other business interests. It is worth noting what that number represents beyond personal wealth. It reflects a model of entertainment entrepreneurship that his generation of action stars did not have access to in the same structural way, and that younger performers now study and attempt to replicate. The Black Adam film in 2022 represented an ambitious bet on a DC Comics property that did not perform at the box office level Johnson and Warner Brothers had projected. It earned approximately $393 million worldwide against a reported production budget of $195 million. The film's mixed reception and the subsequent DC Studios restructuring under James Gunn and Peter Safran effectively closed the door on the Black Adam franchise direction Johnson had been developing. His public statements on the situation were measured, acknowledging the outcome without deflecting responsibility, and the episode is instructive about the limits of star power as a substitute for a coherent franchise strategy. What remains, after examining the record, is a career that has redrawn several lines simultaneously. He is one of a very small number of performers who can be credibly credited with reviving a franchise, launching a product category, influencing the public conversation around mental health, and restructuring the financial logic of celebrity brand ownership, all within the same decade. The comparison points are not easy ones. Arnold Schwarzenegger built a political career after film. Bruce Willis held action dominance for a shorter, concentrated period. Vin Diesel built a franchise, but from inside it. Johnson's particular combination of physical branding, comedy range, production control, and direct-to-consumer distribution has no clean precedent. He is currently developing multiple film and television projects through $7, maintaining his training regimen, managing his portfolio of brand assets, and by all available reporting, remaining one of the most in-demand presences in entertainment. The story of what he has built is already substantial enough to analyze. The story of where it goes from here is genuinely unwritten. That is not a comforting platitude. It is a factual description of where the career stands, midstream, accumulating, and still deciding what it wants to be.